The sixth generation of fighter jets is almost here, and the world is eagerly waiting. Things got even more exciting on January 20th, almost a month after China unveiled their new fighter jets set to release next year for the military. Against all expectations, Elon Musk unveiled SpaceX's first multirole fighter jet for the new generation. Shaped as a black UFO with impressive feats that outclass everything China has to offer. What makes this aircraft so powerful, and how will its presence affect the upcoming generation of fighter jets? Join us as we explore Elon's UFO fighter jet that defies physics. Elon joins the arms race. On January 23, 2025, American Oversight, a private watchdog group known for exposing classified conversations between government bodies and private officials, made a frightening discovery involving the tech billionaire. According to them, there have been many encrypted communications between Elon's companies and the US military in recent weeks. And based on what they uncovered, SpaceX and Boeing had just finished a new fighter jet prototype that outclasses the powerful aircraft recently unveiled by China. This came at a time when many leaders were very concerned about how SpaceX has been getting more involved in matters of homeland security, and with the conversations unveiled by American Oversight, things seem to be far worse than they imagined. For most people, this was a hard pill to swallow, and the only believable thing about the news was that the fighter jet was shaped like a UFO, just as Elon would want it. But strangely enough, that wasn't the interesting part. What came as a shock to most people was that SpaceX has been involved in the aerospace arms race since early 2023. Even back then, there were many trending stories of private companies getting involved in the US military. Though most of these reports were proven wrong time and time again by leading authorities, the rumors persisted for several months, proving something serious was going on, even though many people didn't believe it. The biggest reason behind this was that the US Department of Defense had been struggling to keep up with leading military technologies across the world. Every time they launched new weapons and tools designed to get the upper hand against competing nations, it would only take weeks for their rivals to create something much better. After many private discussions with the nation's leading innovators in aerospace engineering, the Next Generation Air Dominance initiative took an unexpected turn. The Pentagon wanted to have a powerful fighter jet that couldn't be easily outdone by China or Russia in a few years. Unlike previous war machines, this new fighter jet wouldn't be just another improvement over the previous generation, but would redefine everything possible in air combat. Trusted delegates from the Pentagon needed support from multiple firms to make this work. Money was never the issue, but time and support. They needed many hands on deck to pull this off in just a few years, as most of them had rightfully predicted that China would introduce their sixth-generation fighter jets by late 2024. Among the companies capable of helping them were Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon Tech, Kratos Defense, Blue Origin, Boeing, and SpaceX. Each of these companies had contributed significantly in the past years, but the Pentagon needed companies capable of providing generational leaps within a few years. Not all of them could pull this off, and neither could most of them work together. You see, at the time, Lockheed had done a great job with their Raptor and Lightning fighter jets, but they couldn't offer the generational leap the Pentagon was looking for. As for Raytheon, they were mostly specialized in making advanced missile systems, while Northrop was only good at making new stealth and bomb technologies. Kratos Defense wasn't a great option either, as most of its research was on how to use unmanned systems to complement the main fighter jets. This left only three options to work with, and those were Blue Origin, SpaceX, and Boeing. But with Blue Origin not willing to take part in something as risky as this, only SpaceX and Boeing were willing to go at it. This agreement to work together seemed strange for several reasons. For one, both these companies had never worked together before. Secondly, each company led different industries, and their leaders hardly knew each other. Boeing had always been focused on building better fighter jets for the military, while SpaceX was always focused on doing its own thing by making reusable spacecraft that would help humans colonize Mars in the near future. Both companies had different ambitions, but the Pentagon saw great potential in having both companies work side by side to build the military's ultimate fighter jet. By the summer of 2023, David Calhoun, CEO of Boeing, and Elon Musk, founder and CEO of SpaceX, had their first meeting with the Pentagon. The matter was unveiled in full detail, along with all the contracts necessary to ensure they were part of the program. And to the delight of everyone present at the meeting, the answer from both CEOs was yes. However, This came after hours of difficult negotiations on what the partnership was going to look like. It seemed both companies could never get along well enough to make this work. Boeing's delegates didn't like the unusual ways SpaceX handled difficult tasks, while delegates from Elon's company thought the contracts were too strict. Thankfully, both parties came to a solid agreement on how to go about it. And under the close supervision of the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, the first exploratory meetings began in the fall of 2023. The projects agency had a simple goal in mind: create a powerful jet that would take almost a decade for China and Russia to outmatch. After nearly 6 months of research, the breakthrough moment came in March of 2024, a time when Boeing's ER&D labs were struggling to add a lightweight material that would endure the stress of traveling at over 4 times the speed of light. Time was running out as China was just months away from announcing their new fighter jets, and the issue was brought up during a joint meeting at the project agency's Arlington headquarters in late February. And things weren't looking good, not until this happened. The Eagle Star. During the meeting, Elon Musk suggested using a variation of the material SpaceX had used on the latest Starship model, the one mostly made out of 301 composite stainless steel. By May 2024, most of the work was moved from R&D labs to another facility in Palmdale, California, where various teams from Boeing and SpaceX easily worked together under better security. Through this period, Boeing worked on the airframe design, but that wasn't all. Perhaps the biggest contribution SpaceX made in putting together the new fighter jet was the Phoenix engine. Inside reports tell us the propulsion system was built with inspiration from Starship 6's Raptor engine, but with many improvements, allowing the fighter jet to still perform at its best at the edge of reaching space. The fighter jet is also 30% lighter than the F-35 Lightning II and has almost twice the combat range and speed, capable of flying at speeds approaching Mach 5. Some sources tell us the unveiling took place behind closed doors on January 20th and was kept under wraps until the last minute. Only top military officials and a few members of Congress were invited officially. Helpful details about the design and specifications were mentioned, and the new fighter jet was given its official name, Eagle Star. Despite how exciting it was, the more specific details about this new fighter jet were kept close to the chest, like the total cost when it would be officially used by the military and the specific operations it would be assigned for. But that wasn't all. Other things they revealed were that it would be capable of operating and performing tasks on its own, with or without a pilot, fight in near space areas, and interact with military satellite systems. The co-pilot AI system added by SpaceX, with the help of another company, can analyze battlefield data in real time and make intelligent decisions on the right course of action on the most difficult split-second calls many human pilots would struggle with. This project, even though it took just about a year to complete, cost billions of dollars to pull off. Delegates from the Pentagon argued that it was necessary as it showed the world what the U.S. is capable of doing when the need arises. While none of those involved revealed how much it cost to pull this off, various experts in aerospace engineering estimate this project cost somewhere between $250 to $300 billion. This was a huge sum of money for one demonstration of what the U.S. was capable of. Let's find out why. China's frightening demonstration. Just barely a month ago, China shocked the world by introducing 2 6th-generation fighter jets with feats that far surpassed America's leading multi-role military aircraft, F-35 Lightning II. Each fighter jet was unveiled a few days apart, with the first shown on December 26 to mark the Chinese president's birthday, and the second just 3 days later. Every demonstration was carefully planned to show the world what these warcrafts were capable of and what to expect by 2026. The first revealed was the Chengdu J-36, advertised as having several features that are found lacking in America's most powerful multi-role fighter jet. The vast difference in performance was so obvious that a viral article in Wall Street Journal was written about it, describing how devastating it would be if the two nations clash anytime soon. The J-36 came packed with many features that outclassed the F-35 by a whole generation. These included a more powerful engine granting the aircraft a top speed of Mach 2, over 20% faster than the F-35. The J-36 can also carry over 6 PL-15 air-to-air missiles with a much longer range compared to the AIM-120 missiles carried by the F-35. It is also smaller and over 4,000 pounds lighter than the F-35, making it much easier to steer and take sharp turns during air combat. The J-36 also has much better takeoff systems from aircraft carriers, allowing it to carry heavier loads and still take off at high speeds. America's F-35 fighter jets, though much larger, cannot carry as much as the J-36, making them much less agile and competent in close-range aerial battles commonly known as dogfights. Despite these vast differences in performance, it's still important to note that the F-35 still has a few things going for it. Its advanced electronic and stealth features are still considered to be among the best in the world. However, these features are only helpful in carrying out quick and covert missions. They have little impact during open combat scenarios where stealth features are less needed. The other fighter jet revealed by China was the Shenyang J-50, built to make up for the few shortcomings of the Chengdu J-36. For one, the J-50 has more advanced stealth technologies than the F-35, built from the ground up for covert missions. It has a tailless Lambo wing design, reducing its radar cross-section and making it much harder to detect in the sky. The F-35, while impressive in this aspect, doesn't come close to what the Shenyang J-50 is capable of, as it wasn't built with too much emphasis on stealth to accommodate for other features. But better stealth mechanics weren't all that made it impressive. Unlike the Pratt & Whitney F-135 engine found in the F-35, the Shenyang J-50 is powered by twin advanced combat engines that give much better thrust, even through long-range missions. Like the Chengdu J-36, the Shenyang J-50 can also carry long-range air-to-air missiles like the PL-15 and PL-17, as well as a large supersonic missile capable of destroying an entire ship. It also boasts a much higher combat radius, meaning it can operate through much longer distances of over 2,000 kilometers, and also deliver the same results just as it would in close-range combat. Its electronic systems also outclass the F-35 Lightning II. It can operate in the most difficult environments that are riddled with enemy defenses. For the first time in a while, it seemed China was now far ahead of America in military aviation. As always, there was a lot of work to do, and the US needed to either step up or get overtaken by the competition. This huge performance gap meant China might launch the sixth generation of fighter jets ahead of America. And with both new jets bearing the sacred designation of Jian, which means to annihilate, it's safe to say the Eastern authorities meant business when they unveiled the war machines. According to the Wall Street Journal, China is the only nation aside from the United States that has more than one fifth-generation multirole fighter, and with China taking a bold leap into the next generation, it's safe to expect the worst in future conflicts over the Pacific. Even though it's unthinkable to believe both nations would begin a global conflict anytime soon, it should still be seen as a high possibility. With this in mind, it's almost no wonder things got desperate within the US military. So desperate that it caused SpaceX to step out of their comfort zone and move Boeing, America's leading jetliner company, to work with them even though they already had a division for handling this. With that settled, it's safe to say nobody outside the Pentagon looked forward to this partnership, and it left a long trail of mysteries along the way. While many find this difficult to understand, it's important to know that this rivalry between nations on which one makes the best jets is nothing new. A closer look into the history of the US military shows that this battle between nations has lasted since the early 40s and the late 30s through the years that led to the Second World War. Now lasting for over 80 years, these 6 generations were filled with ups and downs, involving different companies and government officials. Even after the global conflict, leading nations like the US, China, and Russia kept trying to outdo each other with better technologies through advanced stealth fighters and hypersonic jets. Keep watching as we unravel the mysteries behind the age-long battle SpaceX is now a part of. The aerospace arms race. The 80-year-old contest for better aerospace arms began during the global conflict of the early 40s. Different nations were involved in this fight, as having the best planes meant having a greater advantage during major battles. So naturally, countries were willing to pay and invest more in faster, more powerful planes capable of flying higher and farther than ever before. This was the first generation, and the ones at the forefront of this race were the Germans. These soldiers led the way with the famous Messerschmitt Me-262, the world's first operational jet fighter. It was faster than all the planes that existed back then, and allies like the United States and Britain still had a long way to go. After the global war was over, It seemed Britain and other countries had stepped out of the race, leaving the US and the Soviet Union as the two big rivals, and their next battle was the Cold War. This conflict lasted for nearly half a century, with both countries trying to develop planes that outclassed the other side. And the United States brought an end to the first generation with their F-86 Sabre, which performed much better than the MiG-15 during the Korean War. Though the Soviet jet had similar specifications, the US won this generation thanks to more planning and training. And from the early 50s, both parties got ready for the second generation. Through the late 50s up until the early 60s, both countries competed to see who would make the best supersonic jets. These jets would be the first to go faster than the speed of sound. And when the Soviets released their USSR MiG-19, the United States blew them away with their far superior F-104 starfighter, with better speed, missiles, and recognition from former contenders. With the US blowing Germany out of the water, the third generation was about to begin. Things got heated up during the mid-60s when the US introduced the F-4 Phantom, a jet capable of safely carrying bombs and missiles while flying at a pace much faster than the speed of sound. The Soviets went for a smaller design that was a hamster and easier to build. These planes were used during the Vietnam War, and both sides tested the jets to their limits. Several important people were involved in this, including leading engineers like Kelly Johnson, the brilliant mind who designed the SR-71 Blackbird. This jet was very good at its job, capable of flying 3 times the speed of sound. It was so fast that no existing missile in the world could catch up with it. And with something like that made by Americans, the third generation came to a close with the US as the clear winner. After proving to the world that they were the top dogs in speed, the fourth generation began with a bigger focus on stealth and movement. At this point, both sides wanted their planes to be smarter and harder to detect. To do this, the United States built the F-117 Nighthawk, and it became the first stealth fighter in the arms race. It was capable of avoiding radar and could easily fly unnoticed to enemy territory. In response, the Soviets built the MiG-29 and Su-27, both of which were very agile and better at dogfights than America's Nighthawk. This was when most of the companies we know today got involved, including Boeing, the company that would later team up with SpaceX to build the Eagle Star, Northrop Grumman, the creators of today's leading fighter jets, and General Dynamics, known today for making Gulfstream business jets. They worked hard to build special parts that would outdo the Soviet companies building rival jets. And thanks to their hard work, America won once again with their F-15 Eagle and F-16 Falcon jets. With several outside companies getting involved, the fourth generation was an easy win for the USA. Several politicians also got involved to make it work, including US presidents like Dwight Eisenhower, John Kennedy, and Ronald Reagan, who spent billions of dollars to make sure they had the best planes the world could afford. As for the Soviets, this was the fourth time they lost to the United States, and their struggling economy couldn't match the billions America's leaders were willing to spend just to have the best planes in their arsenal. And just like Germany and the United Kingdom over a decade before, they backed out, bringing the Cold War to an end in 1991. Wanting to take the leading arms title away from the USA, China stepped into the ring and kicked off the next generation by building advanced jets. Taking notes from the previous US designs, they unveiled the J-20 stealth fighter. In response, the US never stopped innovating, and by the late 90s, they unveiled the F-22 Raptor, a machine so unique that most historians consider it as the first true fifth-generation fighter jet, seeing the J-20 as nothing more than an experiment using abandoned designs from the past. Its speed was much better than the J-20, could attack multiple targets, and was much better at stealth than all the other stealth machines. What followed was the famous F-35 Lightning II, the machine considered by many as the most powerful American fighter jet of the fifth generation. Its sensors were capable of seeing everything around it, including all stealth jets from the previous generation. The fifth generation is the longest, lasting from the 90s up until today. Now things have grown so complicated that it's almost impossible to draw the line on when this generation will end. It's not just about fighter jets anymore, as different countries are now using drones, AI, and hypersonic missiles to gain the upper hand against the USA. From the start of the 21st century till today, the United States has been seen as the obvious winner of the fifth generation, And now they are making plans to dominate once again through the Next Generation Air Dominance program, aimed at creating aircraft that outperforms competitors by a huge margin. But for the first time, China led the way into the sixth generation on December 26th, with the unveiling of the Chengdu J-36 and the Shenyang J-50, both of which outperform America's current F-35 Lightning II in many ways. Now, the Department of Defense has gotten one more company on board, and that is Elon's company, SpaceX. With the many exploits they've performed in recent years, many believe the Eagle Star will be America's ticket to winning the sixth generation of fighter jets set to begin next year. But while it is an exciting time in the history of the arms race, many leaders in the US are also concerned about Elon's increasing involvement in things like this. Why so, you may ask? Let's find out why. Elon and the military. With SpaceX now joining the aerospace arms race, it is almost impossible to draw the line between Elon's company and the US military. Today, SpaceX has over 6,000 satellites orbiting the Earth, machines that could potentially be used by the military with the right tools. In 2022, the US military began to use these satellites for important missions, especially those operations carried out in remote places. Now, the Department of Defense is relying on his internet services for a lot of their projects, causing many to wonder how involved the tech billionaire is with the US military, and with leaked news of Elon's involvement in making a UFO fighter jet for the Pentagon. Things aren't going to get easier anytime soon. Keep in mind that US authorities are also keeping an eye on Elon due to his connection with rival countries like China and Russia. This sudden scrutiny occurred for multiple reasons, as we shall see. First, despite being part of the arms race against the Chinese government, one of Elon's biggest gigafactories is built in China, and he has often said nice things about them. Things got heated later on when Elon suggested that Taiwan, a place China was trying to control by force, should be more like those trying to take over their land. Of course, while this comment made Chinese leaders happy, it raised suspicions on whether he might secretly be in cahoots with China, even though he doesn't mean to. In response, Elon stated that he only wants to get along with everyone who shows support for his products. He said the only people he abstains from are those recently sanctioned by the US. However, this claim didn't hold much water when it was revealed in late 2024 that Elon had been having conversations with the Russian president for at least 2 years. Once again, Elon responded by saying the only times they talked were when they discussed ways of bringing more Tesla products into their mainstream market to promote renewable energy. Since the US and Russia aren't exactly known for getting along, many experts found it hard to believe, including trusted delegates from within the Pentagon. So to prevent more trouble, the US Air Force in December 2024 made it clear that they would stop giving Elon high-level security access and sharing top-secret information on almost anything. The big exception, of course, was the development of the Eagle Star, and not every detail of how they plan to use it from next year has been disclosed to Elon. Even beyond the government, many private organizations have been keeping an eye on Elon Musk. Among these groups is American Oversight, a watchdog initiative dedicated to uncovering suspicious communications to make sure government officials follow the rules. It is thanks to their hard work that we know about the new UFO fighter jet, and they warn against these encrypted messages that are never put on record like everybody else's. According to them, Elon Musk and the various bodies within the military should keep records of all their communications as required by law, classified or not. As far as they are concerned, Elon's actions in recent years have been unpredictable, and with the increasing influence he has in the military that keeps relying on his satellites, they fear his actions can affect global events if left unchecked. As far-fetched as it sounds, this has been the leading concern among leading officials for years. A great example of this happened several months after the Pentagon refused to give more information about him, with things getting so bad that 2 US senators had to speak out about it, and their reaction was not pleasant. These senators, Jack Reed and Jeanne Shaheen, both of whom had met with Elon at various times through the Senate Armed Committee, asked the Department of Justice and Department of Defense to do a deeper investigation on him. They felt he knew too much to still have the freedom to do as he wanted. They wanted Elon to be under strict restrictions to prevent him from giving out information, especially with swirling stories of him now getting involved in building America's most powerful fighter jet for the 6th generation. With the senators speaking out about this on more than one occasion, the U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin III started looking into Elon's past visits and aligned them with current events. And so far, there has been no evidence of leaking information to outside authorities. As Elon himself had said, he is just a guy wanting to be close to everyone willing to buy and promote his products. Nevertheless, China has taken the first step into the sixth generation of fighter jets through the Chengdu and Shenyang corporations, and the US has now responded through the efforts of SpaceX and Boeing's R&D division. Both sides are launching the next generation next year, and the stakes are higher than ever. Elon Musk, David Calhoun, and leading officials at the Pentagon seem confident the Eagle starfighter jet will grant them a much greater advantage this generation. But nobody knows for sure what China's up to. They have been silent ever since they unveiled their two new fighter jets in December, and anonymous sources indicate they might have much more impressive aircraft in their arsenal. Either way, from 2026 and beyond, the rest of the world remains excited to see Elon's new UFO fighter jet in action. So what do you think? Is Elon's new fighter jet all it's cracked up to be, or will it be just another gimmick that isn't as practical? Let us know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Also, click on the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.